Mm, it wasn't until I noticed, like I said, that it affected everything in my life, like my relationship, my friendships. I wasn't seeing my family. And my mom got sick, and then I realized
Mm,
I am choosing work over like the people that I love. I chose work over a long-term boyfriend. I chose work over not going to the hospital to see my mom when she was sick. Like I felt like I had no choice. And I felt
right,
really guilty if I wasn't working because I worked so hard to lead up to this moment and I didn't want to just lose it.
right.
And it wasn't until my mom passed and then I got out of a relationship that I was like, I don't want this to affect the rest of my life. And when I look back at my life in retrospect, I don't want to say I'm so glad I chose work or I'm so glad I worked so hard. Because there's so many other things in my life that I valued more. And I just didn't realize that until it was taken from me.
Welcome back to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast, a show all about inspiring smart, busy women to put their happiness at the top of their to-do list. Join your host and life coach, Dionne Thompson, as she chats with amazing women who have figured out how to make their happiness a priority, and more importantly, what it's really like to go from hot mess to awesomeness. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast. I am your host and life coach, Dionne Thompson, and I am here with Danielle Paulo. We have actually been trying to get on this call for a while. And the fact that we live on opposite sides of this continent really had nothing to do with it, although I thought that would have been a time change, time difference sort of issue. No, I had sick people, and then you had sick people, and then here we are. So I'm very, very excited to be jumping on this call. When we met, as one does via the interweb, I was instantly drawn to the passion that you have for female led businesses and supporting women to really amplify what we're freaking awesome at. And when we chatted about you being a guest, I was super pumped about you sharing your experience of having worked in multiple industries that are sort of it edges females out in many ways, and you finding your way is really an inspiring story. So I'm super excited for you to be here today. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Yay. So before we jump into your story, let me quickly introduce you to everybody. So, Danielle was originally from the Philippines and started out her career as a fashion stylist for celebrities during Fashion Week, all while still in college. She received her bachelor's degree from an art institute and then went on to study visual communications at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles. Now, before founding her own digital marketing agency called Creative House, Danielle worked as a social media manager, marketing director, and chief marketing officer. Now she finds herself a successful entrepreneur and business owner, all under the age of 30. And what I love is that your organization is completely about women, and all of the women who, or all of the people who work with you are female identified individuals. And I think
Yes.
that is amazing. Um, so tell me a
Thank you.
little bit. Tell us, all under the age of 30. Oh my God, be still my heart, because I am nowhere near the age of 30. And when I was 30, my whole world was super self-centered and not driven by the awareness that you have. So tell us what prompted you to shift out of one industry and really take that leap into entrepreneur land with the vision that you held.
That's such a funny story. And whenever I look back in retrospect, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. Like when I was 20 years old, my dream was just to be like a chief marketing officer or just to me be like an assistant to a CEO.
Mm,
I never thought of myself to be like, I'm going to start a business one day. And it wasn't until I was 25 years old and I got to like the executive suite position. And I was like, I'm 25 years old, making six figures. I'm working directly with an owner. I'm a chief marketing officer. Who could say that? And then I
right.
realized I prayed and I wished for that moment, and it was nothing that I wanted.
Mm.
And it made
What?
me like, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to say, what did you think it was, and then what was it? Like, what was the disconnect there?
I think it's just because having Asian parents and then having like this pressure to just be really
Mm,
successful at a certain age because I'm the only child. My parents are very successful. Like they have like their masters, they have like their PhD and in such a young age, started their family young. So I felt this pressure. I was like, I was only 24 at the time. And I was like, I'm not where I need to be in life. And I need to do better. I need to do more. So I think just having my parents instill that in me made me have like this work ethic that I eventually now realized it was really toxic. And I never believed in the hustle culture. But because I was so young and I wanted to already get to this unrealistic goal. And when I met it, I was like, this is not what I want in life. Like, I don't want to be working 12-hour days. And I want to have a life and I want to have a social life. And no matter how much money I was making, I just wasn't fulfilled.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating how we sometimes there's a disconnect between how hard we feel we need to work for something, and I'm all about working hard for what it is that you want, but knowing that that pace is not sustainable. So in order to stay wherever that goal is, if you have to continue on that path every single day, there comes a point where you're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to fall down."
Yeah. And I was burnt out. I was so burnt out. I was so tired. I was depressed. Like it affected my relationships, my friendships. And all I had to do was focus on work because that's all that I thought I had for myself. And then I
Right.
realized I want to have lasting relationships that are not just about work.
Weird. Who knew that that was a thing?
Yeah, who knew that was even an option? Because I started noticing whenever I hung out with my friends, the only thing they would say about me is you're such a hard worker. And I'm like, that's it? That's all you have to say is like not me being a good person, like not me feeling alive or like being spontaneous. Like all they said is like, I really like that you work so hard.
Yeah.
And I
What
was like,
a what I mean, I feel like for so many of us women in particular, we don't realize how important it is to truly be seen until we get to those moments and like they don't have a clue. Like either we can get caught up in the there must be something wrong with them, but you obviously turned inward and went, no, there's something wrong here. I'm not serving myself well enough.
yes.
So what happened then? What moves did you make?
Mm, it wasn't until I noticed, like I said, that it affected everything in my life, like my relationship, my friendships. I wasn't seeing my family. And my mom got sick, and then I realized
Mm,
I am choosing work over like the people that I love. I chose work over a long-term boyfriend. I chose work over not going to the hospital to see my mom when she was sick. Like I felt like I had no choice, and I felt
right.
really guilty if I wasn't working because I worked so hard to lead up to this moment, and I didn't want to just lose it.
Right.
And it wasn't until my mom passed and then I got out of a relationship that I was like, I don't want this to affect the rest of my life. And when I look back at my life in retrospect, I don't want to say I'm so glad I chose work or I'm so glad I worked so hard. Because there's so many other things in my life that I valued more. And I just didn't realize that until it was taken from me.
Yeah. That's huge. Um, Thank you for sharing that because I think we hear that sort of story a lot. You don't know what you have till it's gone, but it sometimes you don't have to experience it, but when you do, it is so life altering that you now see everything in your life differently. And now it's almost like this sort of veil has been lifted, or you're changing out your perspective. So what um what specifically did you do? Like did you up uproot your life? Did you make small changes? Like how did you take that awareness and then put it into action?
My life just changed so quickly when my mom passed and I had
Yeah.
no choice. So, it made me realize that my mom was a hardworking woman. So she was everything that I wanted to be and that what I always felt like I had to compare to. And
Mhm.
my mom was working up until the day that she died. And even when she was in the hospital, she still focused on work. And I used to think like, oh, I love that. Like I am meant to that. And then I realized I don't like that. And that's not what I want for myself. Because my mom was young. She died when she was 50 and she had so much going for her and so many things that she wanted to do. And it just broke my heart that she was successful. My parents were successful. So it just broke my heart that she still felt the need that even on her last like dying moment, she thought about work.
Wow. And what a sort of a juxtaposition with your friends saying to you, you're really great at work and you're such a hard worker. And then that image there in front of you of what that actually looks like and how that manifests and into your future. Um, what did you decide to lean into after that? So where did you decide to put your energy and your time?
Well, to be completely honest, like I just didn't do anything for like
Mm,
the first year.
Yeah.
And then I realized I have two choices. I could either be really depressed about it for the rest of my life and just choose to give up, or I could choose to change my life now because I can, and I'm young. I have the resources to do it, the capability to do it, and I could finally build this life that I want. And that's what I chose. And no matter how hard it was, I said, this is the life that I had this vision for my life. And I was like, and this is what I want, because at the end of my days, this is what I want to be known for.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously the grieving process has no time limit. And so the time doing and being and resting and breathing and all of those emotions that come up, that takes as long as that takes. But when you do get to that moment where you just choose to create meaning out of the circumstances and make that decision. I love that you had a new vision for yourself, one that sort of went beyond this work, 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 and then who knows what, but just continue to do that, and
Yeah.
there you are. So that new vision that obviously included more rest, did it include more play, include more
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So how are
One
you
thing,
executing that?
well, back then, what I really wanted to focus on was just like freedom and peace.
Yeah.
And that was something that I just wasn't getting. And I was like, I will work my ass off to get to that place. And until I feel that, I'm going to continue building whatever I can so I could make that attainable. So now what I really focus on is like my mental health and like having downtime. So I'm all about self-care.
So
So
it's awesome because obviously you're extremely hard worker. You're very, very focused. And when you focus on loving yourself, I mean, magical things can happen. You can put all that energy into resting and all that energy into stillness. And, it's interesting, this idea of freedom. We've been so inundated with sort of the masculine energy of freedom. And I don't mean men here. I just mean that masculine energy of freedom is like you work really hard so that you can, work hard, play hard, and accumulate more money so that you can do more things when you become almost trapped inside of that pattern of you have to do this for X number of hours just so that you can have this. You have to work so hard so that you can retire. You can work so hard so you can have 2 weeks vacation or whatever that might be. But when you work hard at being you and putting you first, like there's massive shifts there. So tell me about Creative House and how that started to become part of your vision. And now that it exists and it's awesome.
Yeah. So when I was a chief marketing officer at my old job, that's when I realized like I don't want to work 12-hour days. And I didn't like my boss. I didn't like my lifestyle. I just didn't like working there. And it was right before the pandemic hit. And I made this bold choice and risk to be like, I'm so unhappy that I would rather not have this job and figure it out than continue this and just like be miserable and be depressed. And I just one day woke up and I was like, I'm so unhappy with my life that I would rather just figure it out on my own and start over no matter how hard it was. And that's exactly what I did. And I didn't tell anybody about it, didn't ask for any opinions. I was like, I want to focus on like me being happy.
That is so bold and so brave. And at the same time, I think just our almost like our birthright. And so I am, like I said, not 30. And it took me a long time to feel that I had permission to do that. I love that you didn't openly get anybody else's approval, and made that bold choice. And I say bold not as in like, whoa, that's risky, but just in like, yeah, fuck you, world, I can do whatever I want. That kind of bold, which I'm like to the rooftops. Oh my God, let's celebrate that, because we again have been so conditioned that you have to have some security before you leave this other thing, with no account for the impact that other toxic, negative, whatever we don't love about it environment is having on us, and making it almost impossible to go and get the new thing. It's really challenging to go find a high vibe life while you're living a low vibe one and surrounded by that energy. So yay you. Like, I'm
Thank
clapping
you.
here. It's freaking awesome. So you made that big shift, and that like big bold decision, like badass decision. And then so my little assumption mind is like, Yeah, that's not always the easy path. So tell me, was it a bumpy road? I'm sure it was worth it, but tell me about the challenges that you faced and then how you stayed true to you in those challenges.
I mean, it was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. Like, I had no support. Nobody, like, even knew what I was doing. So I
Mhm.
knew it was something that I had to do by myself. And I didn't want to burden anybody else. And right because it was right during the pandemic, I felt like it could either be a really selfish decision that will affect everybody, or it's going to be the best decision of my life. And it was so hard because it was such an impulsive decision that I was like, okay, I may have fucked up, but because I felt free, because I'd made the decision by myself, first of all. And second, I finally got rid of like this toxic work environment, this toxic life that just made me so unhappy that the moment that I quit, I felt like this release. I've never felt more happy and more free because it was my choice. And no one was going to be there to tell me like what I can and cannot do, which was hard for me because I grew up being very submissive.
Mm.
So I always constantly would just follow what everyone told me. So it was like the
Wow.
first time in my life that I chose is like, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Like, I'm going to choose what I want to do at that moment. And a lot of people did think I was selfish. And a lot of people thought it was a bad idea. And I was like, I don't care because it's the first time that, and I didn't realize that I was so burnt out that it took me 2 years to recover from it.
Yeah, that's massive. And as a survivor, thriver from burnout, I can appreciate that it's not, oh, I'm better now. That's not how it works.
No.
Because the patterns that get us to burnout are the things you have to unravel. And that takes a really long time, right? Understanding what behaviors are perpetuating that cycle, because it's a cycle, right? So you go,
Yeah.
go, 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 fall down, pretend like you're resting, get back up, do it all over again, go, 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 right? And so burnout is really the fall down part where if we're not careful, we call it vacation, or we'll
Mhm.
call it, I just need to unplug for a while, or we will, there's all different ways in which burnout can show up. And but yeah, it takes a really long time to recover.
Yeah. And even when I would lie to myself and say, like, I'm going to have a rest day, I realized I was still constantly trying to prepare for work for when I was going to go back to work. So it was never really rest. It was
No.
just like my body just staying still, but my mind running.
Right? I used to think that that was just how people lived. I like that's just normal, right? And I used
Mhm.
to, in the early days of my sort of recovery, I don't want to, what do you want to call it? Like my, yeah, you find yourself stuff. I'd be like, I don't understand this relax thing everybody keeps talking about. My brain is never turned off, ever in my 45 plus years. Has it ever not been going and is always in the future, like always?
Yeah.
And apparently there are people who can make that not happen. And I was like, you people are crazy. So I developed these really interesting numbing patterns that I would call relaxing, because I didn't know that. I was like, oh, I want what everybody else has. I want to like relax and not think about anything. But the only way I could do that was to like either chemically or environmentally shut off my brain, meaning
Mhm.
like whether it was a binge of a show or it was alcohol or whatever it might be, it was like I needed something else. I couldn't do it on my own. um, those patterns, like then that just perpetuates this whole thing. So relaxing's never actually relaxing, it's still actually being stressful.
Yes.
So I love that you made that massive shift to give back to you, to actually take the time to figure out how to be free, how to find peace and calmness while building a business. Like there's stress in that, but it's different when it's very driven by you and your passions and your values. So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about, because we had talked about, the energy, the sort of patriarchal elements, the ceilings that you felt as a woman, and what you like, what prompted you to launch the business that you did in the way that you did, that is more female centered.
Yeah. So the quickest way I guess I could explain this was because I grew up or I worked in like a male dominated industry, I realized that there's no female for me to look up to. Like when I
Mm.
was first starting out my business, I was like, okay, I'm an immigrant, I'm a person of color, and I wanted to build my community first. And then I realized it was really hard to find. It was really hard for me to find other women entrepreneurs, let alone for them to be like the same color as me or also be an immigrant. And when I did more research, I've noticed anytime I Googled anything up of like top business owners, like Forbes list, it was always males. And I was like, wow, it must be really hard for women. And I realized that growing up, or like through all of my career, I only had male bosses. But I was the one running their business, and I was the one that knew more, and they got all the credit for all their hard work that I was putting in, they like received.
Right.
And then it made me realize like I want to be that woman for other women who may feel like me, who are like, I don't want to work for someone who treats me like shit or is just really toxic and just doesn't value me. And I was like, I could be that, because I realized there's not that many women out there that do.
Right. And even if there are, there may be a whole bunch, but the visibility is non-existent.
It's yes.
Right. And so even Googling and finding, and as you had said about creating a community, it's such a powerful thing of, wrapping our arms around each other, linking arms, and really amplifying the voices that need to be amplified as a result, which is another reason why I wanted to have you here. I think it's so crucial that women who are supporting women are highlighted and put at the top of the Google search and all of those things, because it's not going to, we can't just hope that the system that's not working for us is going to somehow work for us just because we're working hard. And we need to work smart together. We need to work in alignment with each other and with this bigger vision for how powerful we can be as an entity. And I mean that in inclusive of all humans, right? It's not about men and women at all. It's about system and imploding the system and shifting mindsets of whomever is upholding it.
Yes.
So thank you for that. So tell me about your work. Tell me about how you have taken all of these years of knowledge, this information, this sort of like, wow, this system is not working for me. I want to do something different. I want to do something better. I want to serve my community. And then of course, taking your skill set and doing that work. So tell me about Creative House.
Yes. So Creative House, like you said, is an all female-led agency. And I did not plan it to be that way. But because when I was interviewing and I knew I wanted to build my team, like women are so talented. And I feel like they're so underappreciated and overworked in a lot of things, like especially in like the workforce. And it made me realize that, of course, like our pay is so different. And I realized I want to hire females so they know what it's like to be executive suites managers and be getting paid the same amount as men are right now. And I didn't want them to feel like they were in a competitive space. So for me, it was so important for me to build this female team because I wanted them to not only have a really good work culture, but feel comfortable and safe in like their work environment, which I feel like is really hard for women.
Yeah, it absolutely. Are you familiar with what's going on with the movie Turning Red right now?
No, what's happening?
Okay, so Turning Red is it's a Disney movie and an animated Disney movie, and it's about a young girl who's sort of coming of age. And the team that brought it to life is all female, and they talk about issues of what it means to be. And so the main character, so she's Chinese immigrant in Canada and living this life. And, I think she's 13 and all the things that go along with that. They talk about periods. They talk about all kinds of liking boys and there's huge slack. And I'm not going to say that I know all of it because I kind of distance myself from it, but I have 2 young girls and the slack was that, it's not the right topic for young kids, which of course is, in my opinion, crap because it's extremely valuable. I have 2 young daughters who watched it and were like, oh my goodness, this is so speaking to me. Not only that, they watched the extra, and the extra was about the director and the all-female team that led and brought this to life. And the same sort of what you're sharing now about your experiences and wanting to create these environments where we can thrive and be not just equal and all of those pieces, but really shine the light on the value that we can bring together as a team. So, because even what they shared in their sort of documentary piece after the movie was the energy that they felt from so used to being surrounded by men to all of a sudden doing their work in an environment full of women. It just changed the capacity of their work. So did you experience that when you brought in, so you're interviewing and you're bringing in the right people that are matching and meeting the energy that you're looking to create? What kind of differences have you noticed in your work environment, all women, that from when you were working where there was primarily men?
I think my team just knows that they're always being seen and heard. And because there's no males that are working with us, they don't feel like there's competition. So
Mm,
they all work in such a really great collaborative space, which to me is always what I wanted. Like my employees tell me all the time, like I feel so seen here. I feel comfortable like speaking what I have to say. And they know that every person that's on my team, they all could lean on each other. And I just feel like you can't really get that if there was another male that was
mm,
working for us, because I feel like they would feel like he would be entitled to a lot of the opinions,
right.
or because it's true though, a lot of males usually are in a higher level and they get
Hmm.
paid more
Yeah.
for maybe not having that much experience, or maybe just like being in like a lower hierarchy. But
Hmm.
I just realized, like, because my team felt so comfortable, and then I liked it because I was serving my community, and I was like, I want to support other women, and I want them to know that their hard work is always going to be appreciated and valued. And the
Yeah.
only way that I could show that in a bigger scale was through my business. So
Yeah.
even my clients that I work with are all usually small business owners who are also female led. Like a lot of the people that I meet and the interviews that I do, I make sure it always has to align with what my business is.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I know a lot of phenomenal men, and I'm sure you do as well. And this isn't about saying there aren't amazing men who could be part of great collaborative teams. What I think is really the light that needs to be shine here is the systems are set up so that we all believe the same thing about corporate hierarchy. So if a man randomly shows up, it's almost like, regardless of who he is, he's somehow put above us. And we do it ourselves. We because we've been so conditioned to do that. And systems, it's systematic implosion that I think is necessary. And it's through organizations like yours, podcasts like this, where we're having these conversations and again shining that light in those dark places that have just been kind of going under the radar. It's not even under the radar, people are fully aware of it, but the change needs to occur so that should a individual who happens to be a man shows up into your community, the the community that you've created, the collaborative energy that stays, right? And so it's these narratives that we all have that need to be rewritten, but that's going to take some time, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, all we got is time because it keeps ticking. So let's do this work together. And so, the next generation, my children, all of our children, are having a whole different conversation, ideally a better
Yes.
one. Yeah.
I mean, that's eventually like my goal for when I have children, and if they want to take over the business or whatever they choose to do, I want them to know that they have that option too,
Yeah.
and that it's attainable.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, Danielle, I am so excited to have you in my world and to know that you are out there doing this great work and supporting small business owners, supporting female led communities, and really doing it's all about that on the ground stuff, right? Yes, systemic implosion. Let's do that, but it can only happen when we take these small actions every day and we make those, I can say, bold decisions to say, no, that's not my story anymore. I'm going to rewrite my story now in a way that gives me real freedom and real peace and real calm. So I think that's fantastic. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, so thank you for walking us through your story. Thank you so much for your openness and your vulnerability. Is there anything that you would like the listeners to walk away with today?
Yeah, I mean, apart from giving business advice, I feel like overall the best general advice I could ever give is whatever you choose to do, just do it with intention and purpose. And do
Mm,
it because it makes you happy and that's what you choose to do with your life, because this is a long life. Whether it's going to be a relationship, the person you're with, or a business, it's like if you're waking up every day and you're not excited to do it, then don't do
hmm. Absolutely. That's brilliant. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Danielle, for your time. And
it.
thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. Join Dion again next week to learn more about what you can do to go from hot mess to awesomeness.